Mr. President, I am pleased to co-sponsor the Weapons System Acquisition Reform Act, which would overhaul our defense procurement system and improve mechanisms for identifying and eliminating waste. I want to thank Senators Levin and McCain for introducing this critical piece of legislation and recognize them for their effort moving it through the Armed Services Committee. Mr. President, this bill is an essential step toward eliminating wasteful inadequacies that have permeated the weapons procurement system. I'm sure my colleagues share my deep concern about the Government Accountability Office's conclusion last year that, quote, DoD programs continue to be suboptimal, unquote, resulting in, quote, lost buying power and lost opportunities to recapitalize the force, unquote. This is unconscionable and unacceptable for the world's strongest military power, especially as we continue to have troops in harm's way. Today, Senators Levin and McCain will discuss some of the most egregious examples of a lack of oversight in the acquisition process and cost discrepancies that surfaced over time. This is why this bill requires the Secretary of Defense to implement mechanisms that guarantee consideration of the trade-offs between major weapons systems cost, schedule, and performance at each phase of the procurement process. This bill would give the Department of Defense the tools it needs to improve the acquisition process, to avoid suboptimal results, reduce waste, and ensure that the cost of developing a specific weapons system is commensurate with our defense needs. According to Secretary Gates, this will require, quote, a holistic assessment of capabilities, requirements, risks, and needs, unquote, which will entail, among other things, quote, a fundamental overhaul of our approach to procurement, acquisition, and contracting, unquote. Both President Obama and Secretary Gates have indicated their strong support for this legislation because they want to do everything in their power to protect our troops, advance national security goals, and keep America safe. Unfortunately, we will not get a refund for the mistakes of the past, but we can make better decisions today that will lay the foundation for more pragmatic decision-making in the future. The military challenges we are facing today are unlike conventional wars of the past. Let me repeat, the military challenges we face today are unlike conventional wars of the past, and therefore require a reconfiguration of defense spending. I agree with the assessment of leading defense experts. We must better prepare to win the wars we are in, as opposed to those we may wish to be in. Last month, I had the privilege of traveling with Senator Jack Reed to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, where it was abundantly clear that we must focus future spending on our growing counterinsurgency needs. In Iraq and Afghanistan, we are engaged in a four-stage process of shaping the environment, clearing the insurgents with military power, holding the area with effective security forces and police, and building through a combination of governance and economic development. The four stages, again, are shaping the environment, clearing the insurgents, holding the area, and building through a combination of governance and economic development. In order to be successful in this complex process, we must ensure that our commanders have the necessary tools to effectively engage in counterinsurgency operations. And this requires a fundamental rebalancing of our defense priorities. As we shift resources from Iraq and Afghanistan, we'd heard over and over again, we are facing potential shortages of some of the high-demand equipment and critical enablers, such as UAV operators, engineers, air traffic controllers, and road clearing units. The allocation of these scarce resources, our military leadership to make difficult decisions as we balance competing needs in Afghanistan and Iraq. These shortages underscore why we must eliminate waste and reshape our defense priorities. It is in this regard that I want to highlight Section 105 of this bill, which directs Joint Requirements Oversight Council to seek and consider input from combatant commanders prior to identifying joint military requirements. This provision is essential because it incorporates the views of our commanders on the ground to ensure that they have the tools they need to better protect our troops, defeat militants, and succeed in our missions overseas. As Secretary Gates wrote in Foreign Affairs earlier this year, we must build innovative thinking and flexibility into the procurement process. And the key is to make sure that the strategy and risk assessment drive the procurement rather than the other way around. This is why we must institutionalize these changes into the procurement process, which must be flexible enough to respond to developments on the ground and better equip our troops to engage in counterinsurgency. Mr. President, Madam President, I wish we had the procurement system set up under this bill years ago, but it's never too late to institute needed change. I thank the authors, Senator Levin, Senator McCain, of this important initiative and encourage my colleagues to join me in supporting this bill.